As I'm sure you can imagine, based on my last story, I did not stay with that GP practice much longer. I had remembered that my friend and neighbor had told me multiple times she was really happy with her GP, so I managed to switch to hers and went on to have a really wonderful pregnancy. They take great care of my kids and my husband as well. I've always personally found that after having babies, the 4th and 5th month are the hardest. For my kids, there's always been a sleep regression and they just tend to stop sleeping as much. So mixed with my anxiety and depression and 3 other small kids to care for, I'm sure you can imagine that it was the perfect recipe for a symptom flare-up. Between the time I had my cognitive behavioral therapy and this 4 or 5 month mark with my daughter, I was able to manage my symptoms with diet and exercise, and that's a really wonderful thing. But with being so spread thin, I was completely unable to access any of those tools, and I was pretty much just crying all the time and feeling like this impending sense of doom and unable to care for my family in the way that I knew that I was capable of. Personally, I always find that when I have these periods of crying uncontrollably and not really understanding why, that's a signal to me that I need to get help. Oh, please don't do that. Based on my experience with my previous GP during a mental health crisis, I was really nervous to ask for help, but my husband and my friend encouraged me, and honestly, it was like physically painful and I couldn't continue living in that way. I called the office and even the receptionist was so kind and supportive, and they were able to see me in the office within that week. I told my GP about my history with postpartum depression and anxiety and what meds and milligrams had previously worked for me, and she believed me, and I was able to go to the pharmacy and pick up my medication that day. That was about 8 months ago, and I've been taking my medication every day since then. I actually noticed that it's also resolved some other symptoms that I didn't really attribute to depression or anxiety. I've had no negative side effects whatsoever, and I'm really thankful. If you found yourself in a similar situation, I definitely encourage you to advocate for yourself until you get the help that you need.